One of my favourite illustrations from Scripture is when Jesus answered the question. Jesus said the second greatest commandment is love your neighbour like yourself. And somebody said, well, who's my neighbour? Who do I actually owe this responsibility to of love? And Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. And in that, the first two people that came across this neighbour who was in need of practical assistance, he was broken and couldn't help himself, they were religious people and they missed the opportunity to get involved in the solution on their way to do religious duties. But then this third person came along who the guy on the road probably had no respect for, probably had no reciprocal love for. They were kind of enemies. But the Good Samaritan comes along and he inserts himself practically into the solution. He invests his time, he invests his effort, he invests his money, and he takes a long-term interest. And for me, that's a picture of our opportunity to help 24 million neighbours at once by investing our time, effort, money, and taking a long-term interest in the policies that shape our nation, because they affect justice issues. They affect those who are appointed to die, orphans, widows, and the other policies which affect everybody in Australia.
Your comment about they possibly were enemies, I'll just kind of expand that out a little bit. The Jews and the Samaritans hated each other. The Jews saw themselves as pure-blood Jews.
Superior.
Yeah, because the Samaritans had intermarried with other nations, and so they were seen as the kind of the mongrel.
That's right.
And so they hated each other. And certainly when I've preached on...
that was real racism.
Oh, exceptionally so. And, you see, when I preach on the Good Samaritan, I kind of... A modern-day illustration is sometimes you see the hatred between Arabs and Americans, that intense dislike, that intense hatred. And so you've got this Jewish guy beaten up, you've got this Samaritan guy knowing that he's hated by this Jew, this Jewish guy, total and utter disdain for this person that's the only one that's actually stopped to help him. And you see it breaking down walls. You see, getting rid of that hatred, that racial and religious hatred, and basically, like you say, inserting himself practically in, and I think being a great model of kindness.
Yes.
Which I actually think is one of the things that can change the world.
Yeah. So obviously my show and your blog is politics and social issues. But tell me, because the charity that you head up, Global Care, is a great example of the church practically responding, not trumpeting itself, not asking, for TV ads and things like that to tell everybody about the good work that we're doing, just getting in there and doing it. I heard you say that there was, and without mentioning their names because I don't want to, they do good work, there was a stark lack of other charities in the places that you were responding, and you were responding for a very long time to the floods that we had, not you personally, but the team that you have in Global Care. So tell me about Global Care.
Global Care is the social justice arm of the INC movement. INC stands for International Network of Churches, the old Christian Outreach Centre movement. And I love being involved in a movement that actually has an organised expression into the justice space. So we do things like certainly respond to natural disasters, which we did, Bowen, Proserpine, the Logan area here, down at Balgam. But what often happens in a disaster, and I'll explain a little bit more about Global Care in a minute, but what often happens in a disaster, and we've seen this in the Kinglake fires, the South East Queensland floods, the Grantham disaster, and certainly into Balgam, where a disaster happens. All the media there, the army, if it's big enough, the army's there. Certainly in Kinglake it was. The SES come in, the media, other charities are there, and they're there for 4 or 5 days, and then the media, the interest in Australia dies down. The media interest, all the media pack up and go away, and my experience has been that so many of the charities then also pack up and go home, and it's a. If you look at the grief process, one of the stages is anger, and I've seen the anger exacerbated by the feeling of being dumped and isolated once the media go home. So what happens is that there's the disaster, And, again, the army of the SE immediately, and they're cleaning the streets, they're getting them all the mud off, and, getting basically a town's infrastructure back functioning. Once that's done, the SES and the army have pretty much done their role, so they go and the media go, and then people are left going, well, hang on, what about my house? My house went under. I've got damaged carpet, damaged plasterboard. And so they're kind of going, well, who's here to help now? And that's my experience where I've at times struggled to see where charities that are advertising, and this was my frustration.
They're asking for donations.
They're asking for donations, and they're saying, "Hey,
but they're gone.
Yeah, here's the donate to so and so's work in the southeast Queensland floods." And we're down into Balgam. We're here in Logan City. We're up in Bowen and Proserpine, and I'm going, hang on. I haven't once seen that particular charity in any of those areas, but yet they're asking for money on the radio. And I think that's a challenge for me, because I know that, we've gone into some disasters. I remember the tornadoes down in Ballina a couple of years ago. We went in, we had a barbecue trailer, we were going to help people, and we were told by other charities, no, all the charity space is full here, go home. And unfortunately, it's competition for the donor dollar, and it just gets very sad. Yeah. And again, I love the fact that Global Care is financed by the INC movement, so we don't have to go on to TV and radio and beg for money, and because it's the social justice arm. So some of the other things that Global Care does.
If somebody wants to donate, what's the website?
globalcare.com.au. That'd be awesome. But some of the other things we do, we have like 85 locations around Australia and 40 around the world. So we do a lot of low-cost food ministries. We do feeding programs in schools. We've got a anti-ice forum. We've actually got it here in Logan City tomorrow night. So this is just a new launch thing that we've done. Yep. But overseas, we build birthing suites in Africa.
Awesome.
I'm a huge fan of micro-enterprise because I've seen it firsthand. So we do a lot of micro-enterprise. We have run goat banks in Vietnam, that sort of thing. So, and just basically help. And we do international disaster response as well. We've just had a team come back from Vanuatu, still rebuilding after Cyclone Pam. We've had teams in Fiji, and there was a fire in Chile a couple of months ago now, 3,000 homes destroyed. We've had Global Care respond over there too. So lots of stuff going on in that justice space, like the Good Samaritan, presencing ourselves practically. You don't always have to tell people about Jesus. You can go and be Jesus to people.
That's right.
And that's really my heart in that.
Yeah, good. And it's the same as our last conversation in the last segment. You don't have to quote scriptures every time you're doing good or saying truth on Facebook. You have to say it well, but it's sometimes more convincing when you don't try and have a double agenda.
And one of my favourite scriptures is Isaiah. The Assyrians are coming down against the nation of Israel, and they run to a form of spirituality. They're keeping all the Sabbaths, the new moons, they're giving alms, they're praying. And in Isaiah chapter 1 verse 16, God basically says, I don't care. Like, I'm not interested in what you're doing. And then he says, but in Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17, he says, hey, this is what I want you to do. Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, and plead for the widow. And so basically, and I liken this a little bit to Australia at the moment, where Australia is, to some degree, there's not under attack literally, but there's a lot of pressure from a whole stack of different areas. And I go, okay, culturally, and I go, okay, so what's our response as Christians? Well, hey, let's learn to do good.
That's right.
Let's seek justice. Let's rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, speak truth, but also it's that kindness thing. And I think that sometimes what we do is, I remember the old song we used to sing, hey, I'll go to the ends of the earth for you, Jesus. And often we will promise God the spectacular, but stumble at what seems insignificant. Because we'll promise to go to Myanmar and be a missionary when we know it's probably never going to happen. But when God says, hang on, all I want you to do is take a meal across the road to your sick neighbour.
Or get ridiculed for taking a traditional Christian perspective on an issue on Facebook. Now, tell me, my ears pricked when you said something about, was it birthing suites in Africa? What does that work? Just in 30 seconds.
One of the highest killers of women around the world is preventable deaths in childbirth and pregnancy. Now let me say part of that again, preventable deaths. So this is not just women dying, unfortunately, because this is preventable deaths. So we're trying to do whatever we can, and some of the birthing suites in Africa where we've built them, and in the surrounding villages, there's been no deaths. So they make an amazing difference.
Direct message to our Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop. Absolutely no money from Australian taxpayers should be going to the International Planned Parenthood Federation. That is a complete joke, and it does nothing to help women's health when you help them kill their babies. In fact, it hurts them a lot. There are good charities, non-controversial charities like this, that are actually and only helping women survive the birth process, and that would be a good investment in our tax dollars. Next segment, I don't know what we'll talk about. We'll make it up in the break.
Foreign aid.
Foreign aid? I like it. Good deal. See you soon. Thanks for watching. If you really enjoyed that video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Have a look at this great video next, and check out the website for even more interesting articles and episodes later.